We're going to take a look at a couple of learning targets. The first, I can identify a polynomial by the number of terms. And then secondly, I can identify the degree of the polynomial. So here's what you need to know. When we are identifying a polynomial by term, we need to first really understand what a term is. So it's a single number or variable, or it can be numbers and variables that are multiplied together. And then terms are separated by plus or minus signs. So we identify polynomials with some specific names. So if something is just one term, we say that it is a monomial. And an example of this could be something like 2xy to the fourth. So this is something that is one term because everything's just being multiplied together. You can even have something like a constant, just some number, 10, that's also considered a monomial. It's a single term. Or something as simple as 4x. 4 is being multiplied by x, but that's still just one term. Now something with two terms is called a binomial, and an example of this is something like 6y to the third plus 9. So here you can see that we have two separate terms that are being separated by this plus sign. A trinomial then is going to have three terms. So an example, here we have three separate terms. We have 3x squared. It's separated by a minus sign, and then we have 5x as our second term, and then our last term here is this constant of 7. And then anything that has four or more terms we just call a polynomial. So here's an example. I've got 3x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 9x minus 12. Each of these terms being separated by that plus or minus, and you can clearly see there that we have four separate terms. So aside from identifying our polynomials by the number of terms, we can also look at the degree of a polynomial. And it's equal to the degree of the monomial with the greatest degree. So for example, like if we look over here at our trinomial, notice that the degree here, or if I look at my degree is my exponent, the highest exponent I have here is this 2. So the degree of this trinomial would be the degree of 2. Sometimes you have terms that have more than one variable. So in this example here, in this monomial term, we have 2 times xy to the fourth. Well, this x is really raised to the first power. Okay, so the entire degree of this term is actually 1 plus 4, or 5. So when you have multiple variables in one term, you add the exponents together to get the entire degree of that polynomial. So let's look at some more examples. So here's a table. Something that would have a degree of 0 is called a constant, and an example of that is just the number of 23. We did another example over here where we had 10. That is an example of a constant. It's just that single number, like this negative 12 would be a constant, this 9, those are all constants, 7, that's a constant. Any number that doesn't have a variable with it. A linear equation or linear function is something to the first degree. So here you can see that my x term is just raised to the first power. Okay, so since I'm raised to the first power, that's why I have that degree of 1. When I have a degree of 2, this the name of something to the second degree is called a quadratic, and here you can see the highest degree in this polynomial is 2. This also has 3 terms, so that would be considered a trinomial. It's a quadratic trinomial. If you have something that's to the third degree, we say that it's cubic. So here you can see this is a trinomial. It has 3 terms, but the reason it's cubic is because the exponent here is raised to the third power. That's the highest exponent or the highest degree of any of the terms. In this example, this is a quartic, or the fourth degree, and this is to the fourth degree because this is a single term, but we put all of our exponents together with all of our variable parts. So here I've got 3 and 1. That gives me a total of 4 for my degree, which makes it a quartic polynomial. Here we have something that's quintic, my highest exponent of any term. So if I look at all of the terms here in this polynomial, The highest exponent we have is that 5. That's what makes this to the 5th degree, or a quintic polynomial. And then lastly, something that's above 5, we just say it's the nth degree. So in this example, if I look at all of my variable parts, I want to add all of my exponents together. So 2 plus 3 plus 5, that's where I'm getting that 10 from. That's why it's to the 10th degree. So if you had something that added up to 8 in terms of your exponents, that would be to the 8th degree. So let's kind of put all of this together. We're going to complete this chart. We're going to name each polynomial by the degree and by the number of terms. So here's my polynomial. I've got 5a squared minus 6a. So we want to identify the degree. So we're looking for the highest exponent in either term. So I can identify here this first term has a degree of 2 that's higher than over here, which would be a degree of 1. So my degree is 2. The number of terms, I have one term right here, a second term here because they're separated by that minus sign. Degree of 2, number of terms, 2. So now we can go ahead and name it. So using the chart that we just looked at in the previous slide, something with a degree of 2 is a quadratic, and something with 2 terms is called a binomial. So we're going to put those two pieces together and we're going to call it a quadratic binomial. Second example here, I now have negative 4x to the 4th, y to the 2nd, x to the 2nd, plus 6y to the 5th, minus 3x. So we want to identify the degree. So if I look at this first term here and I look at all of my exponent parts, I have 4 plus 2 plus 2 for all my exponent parts, and that's going to give me a total of 8. Okay, so my degree is 8. The number of terms, I have one term here, another term here, and a third term here. So there's 3 terms. We know something with 3 terms is considered a trinomial. So this is an 8th degree trinomial because we don't have a fancy name for anything to the 8th degree. We just say it's an 8th degree trinomial. Right, and then lastly, I have negative 10k to the 4th plus k to the 2nd minus k plus 5. So looking at the degrees, the highest degree that I have is something raised to the 4th here. And when we have something to the 4th degree, we say that that's the quartic degree. The number of terms, there are 4 degrees because, or 4 terms, excuse me, 4 terms because I have 1, 2, 3, 4. They're separated by those plus and minus signs there. So remember, anything above that number of, anything above 3 terms we just call a polynomial. So I can say that this is a quartic polynomial when I put those two names together. All right, so example 2 now would be a great time for you to pause, go ahead and try these, and then come back to check. So the first one, negative 8ab to the 2nd. So the degree, I want the degree of the entire term. Remember, this a is really raised to the 1st power. So my total degree here is going to be 3. The number of terms, I don't have any other term that's being separated by a plus or minus sign, so there's just one term here. So my name, if I have a degree of 3, that makes it a cubic. Single term is a monomial, a cubic monomial. All right, so now you can give this one a try, 7x to the 4th plus x squared. Looking for my highest degree of any term. This first degree has a degree of 4, the second term only 2, so my highest degree is 4. And then it has 2 terms because it's separated there by that plus sign. So something that's to the 4th degree, that makes it a quartic. Something with 2 terms is a binomial, so we put that together. Binomial, there we go. So a quartic binomial. And then lastly here we have this example, 12c to the 7th plus 5c to the 5th minus 2c to the 3rd plus c plus 18. So in this case, I can see that my highest degree is 7. So that's just going to be to the 7th degree. We don't have a fancy name for 7. And then looking at my terms, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms, which is just going to make it a polynomial. So when I put that together, we can say it's a 7th degree polynomial. So that is how we classify our polynomials by both term and degree. If you need more information on this topic, you can check out the Learning Target spreadsheet for additional resources, videos, and practice.